Okay, I think we're ready. Let's go ahead and open this work study session. George, we'll let you run with it.
Thank you. Do I introduce myself and the team here? George Brockler, I'm the district attorney, the first one for the 23rd Judicial District. That's Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln counties. That's just alphabetical order, not order of importance. On my right is Darcy Kofel. She's the assistant district attorney. Every judicial district has a number 2 that can act as the number 1 in his or her absence. Darcy is the number 2. And then to my left is Jeff Ulrich. Jeff knows everything about everything regarding the operations of the office, including where all the money is, how to hide the money from the public. No, I'm kidding. I keep joking with him about that, and he gets more and more uncomfortable when I say that. Like, dude, do you have a secret account? And he's like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom, or something like that, you know? Jeff also knows everything about the administration stuff, even HR stuff he should know about. He knows all of it. Jeff's the guy that makes sure that we stay compliant with the dollars that we're entrusted with. What brings us to you today is something that I hope to never have to do again, which is a supplemental request. I should say when I was our district attorney back in the 18th, never one single time did I ever ask for a supplemental. I prefer to just do it through the regular budget process. And that includes even after the Aurora Theater thing, which cost us a ton. I did it without asking for a supplemental. I tell you that because this is a historic one-off, and what makes it a one-off is that when we were standing up the 23rd Judicial District, one of the constraints on our planning and budgeting was that the commissioners in Douglas County in particular said, hey, we want you to come in at this level, which was about $1 million shy of what we thought would be fully operational. And they said, let's see how we do at the launch. The intentions are we'll come back and we'll readjust this, but this is where we want to be. And so we did, and we ended up not asking for positions that we woulda, coulda, shoulda had that we're now seeking, and said, hey, we'll come back after X number of months and come back and see where we're at with this to bring us up to where, in my opinion, we should have been at the time of launching. Now, I didn't get to be a part of that process because I wasn't the DA. I mean, I was out for 4 years, so no one invited me in to have this conversation. This is just what I inherited. So much of this is where we are today. Douglas County Commissioners have approved their portion of it, which I think is about 93% based on the population. And for those listening online or watching, the DA's budget is a function of county contributions prorated based on population. 93% of the population, Douglas, about 6%, Elbert County, about 1%, Lincoln County. So that's the background. One of the things that the legislature did this year that forces our hand is they gave us a new courtroom, which they should have given us a new courtroom. If you follow the legislature at all, and if you do, you have significant heartburn, but there are some things they do that make sense for us. Every year on a rotational basis, they revisit every judicial district in the state about new judges, and they're always playing catch up. No judicial district has the judges and courtrooms that it should to deal with its current caseload. So they're always kind of a lag behind. They promised to give us two new judges in this legislative cycle, but because, as you know, the mismanagement of the state funds led our budget to be problematic. So they said initially, we're not even sure we can give anybody any judges right now. That didn't work out. Worked with Senator Kirkmeyer, Peltons, all these other folks to try to get us to a place where they decided we'll do some judges. We'll do district court, that's felony level judge this year. We'll do the county court judge that we need next year. Well, when they give you a new judge, it means we have a whole new courtroom. Well, that courtroom has to be staffed. It's because it's ongoing with the other courtrooms. So it's not possible to just take one existing deputy and say, hey, do this courtroom, and then in between, not possible. That courtroom occasions us needing new personnel, and those personnel are 2 prosecutors per courtroom. That's just a function of the size of the docket. It also occasions a victim witness person, advocate, I guess is what we're going to call them. And then we got a legal, what do we call them, legal assistant? Legal assistant that helps out with all the other nuts and bolts pieces. Because of the size of our district court, this blew us up past a model that is pretty consistent with everybody in the metro area in terms of leadership. We needed a senior deputy to manage them. So right now, we're kind of thin up top when it comes to district court. Denver has a chief deputy in every single courtroom. We don't do that. We don't even have a chief deputy in every 3 courtrooms. We have a chief deputy, they have a senior, and now they'll have 8 prosecutors to manage. That's too much on these people that are supposed to be there to, one, help try the big cases with them, help manage them, make sure they're doing the right things in the right way, give them guidance. So we said, hey, we need another senior to divide up these these district court trench fighters. And so that's the 5th person that really grows out of this process. The law changed. This is the number of case filings. This is why we ended up with a new district court. And I should tell you, we punched above our weight on this. Every other jurisdiction that got a district court judge in the state did not get a criminal judge. Only us. We alone got one. That's a good thing because it means we can start dealing with some of this increase in crime. But 2, the reason that happened is because the state budget was so upside down that when the state gives a new criminal courtroom to a jurisdiction, it means they also have to fund the public defenders that go into it, because public defenders are state funded, not us funded like us. So they didn't want to give anybody a criminal one, but we got them to give us one, which I thought was huge. So this is a response to that, of all the increases in the case filings that we've had. Adult felony filings, total increase just since I left office is up 22%, which is not insignificant. The adult violent crimes up 40%. This is the layout of how we have the courtrooms right now. We have 1 district court judge in Elbert County. We have 1 district court judge in Lincoln, but they're not even full-time. They're part-time. So they share part of a division in Douglas County, and they go out there. And now you can see this. When you look at Division 1 and it says split, that's because that's the chief judge of the jurisdiction, who, by the way, far and away, best judge in the jurisdiction. I just got done trying a case in front of him. He's the guy we want to be the chief judge. But being chief judge means you can't handle a normal caseload. You've got to be managing the judicial side of our judicial district, and so that means it has to be split. And then we have a Division 4. Why it's a letter there, I don't know. Jeff, I don't know if we can get a number there, but then C and 9. This is going to prep the battlefield for our conversation when we do a budget coming up with you in the next few months, because the legislature has said, hey, you're getting a county court misdemeanor DUIs, low-level DV, child abuse, that stuff. You're going to get a new one of those divisions next year. We're going to have the same conversation, and that is we need 2 prosecutors. We need a victim advocate to deal with the cases, maybe even more so for county court because their volume is ridiculous, and a legal assistant, and then we'll talk about what we do with supervision. This is how we lay out the county courts. There's, again, a Division D is split, but we have E, G, and FAC is First Appearance Center. That's the one that may be the most efficient use of our resources, because that's the one where people come in and you're able to just get rid of the cases, right? Like, these aren't people where it's some sort of constitutional victim advocate type thing where you have a victim's rights case. This isn't your repeat DUI offender. This isn't anything like that. So you get most of your cases dealt in FAC. Those that don't push up into the other divisions, and then we're off to the races. Elbert County has a county court judgeship. As an aside to this, do you know that it's going to be vacant? Had you heard that? Judge Boyette is retiring. There are 2 names last week that got sent to the governor's desk. One is a former prosecutor from our office and also a lieutenant colonel in the Army Guard. He couldn't get into the Navy. And one is a former public defender from Jefferson County. I tell you that because if there's any interest in this county letting the governor know, hey, we need a judge that reflects our values, this would be the time to do it. And you don't have a long time. I think the governor has to make a decision by how many days? Darcy, do you know? Is it 2 weeks? So you'd and they announced the names last week. You probably have until the beginning of next week if you're going to do that. I'm just telling you, it's a big deal. This is the person that comes in and sets the bonds on most of the cases. This is the person that deals with the public on all of your lower level offenses and all that stuff. Just letting you know that.
Get the names and background.
I will get them to you for sure. Absolutely, Dales. Yeah, for sure. And then Lincoln County has a county court docket, but it is so part-time that we actually use our felony level prosecutor out there to cover both. They do everything, including I think they do the juvenile stuff that's out there as well. The only thing we don't have them do in Lincoln County is the crimes against children, the special victim unit stuff. We send our folks out there to help with that. This is just showing you how the increase in courtrooms took place historically. Last year, before all this happened, we had 1.5 felony courtrooms. We're going to end up with not three separate courtrooms, but a total of really 3 acting courtrooms as of this summer. These are those positions that we talked about. There's that senior, so that we don't have to have another chief yet. That's going to happen. Someday I'm going to come back to you and ask you for a chief because I'm going to need it because the supervision part is too important and the leadership part. But right now, we can do that triangle down thing. And in essence, you have, I would define it this way. You know how in the Navy, nobody knows any of the ranks because they're all different than everybody else on purpose? You guys still have, I'll use Army talk. A chief deputy is like a company commander, and the seniors are like first sergeants that operate over the other subordinate, soldiers and stuff like that. We're going to need to have a separate company commander at some point, but that's not this year. We can get by if we create another first sergeant. That's in essence what we're doing. And this is consistent. Actually, it's probably even thinner than most of what the rest of the metro area is doing with their leadership. Victim witness advocate, legal assistant. Job responsibilities, this is just the recommendations that come from the study of the metro area and what they do. This is actually, in my opinion, pretty thin in terms of leadership, but it'll be functional for us. It will work. This is the victim witness thing. The front range model, most of the metro area has 1 per courtroom. That makes sense because when you're in trial in that courtroom, you need that person who had been part of all those cases to be dedicated to that rather than have them split between courtrooms when both may end up in trial at the same time. I don't know if you want to read these. These are just the job descriptions of what they do for the legal assistant, the victim witness advocate. This is the staffing cost. This is the total with benefits for each of these positions. For a senior deputy, DC is district court. That's your felony level deputy times 2, victim witness advocate, and the legal assistant. We can get you you want us to send you the PowerPoint, Sean?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that. This is exactly what I told you at the beginning. I sort of did this a little bit out of order. There were additional positions that Douglas County has already approved in addition to that. So let's call that 5 positions. Senior, 2 felony prosecutors, victim advocate, legal assistant. There's more. We have the opportunity to have a need to fill for human trafficking and ICAC. If I say ICAC, do you know what that means? Internet Crimes Against Children. That's the child porn stuff, the luring stuff. And there's a deputy out in Lincoln County. This guy has single-handedly probably doubled the number of cases that we have. This guy is incredible, young kid out there. And that's how motivated these child predators are. They will drive from the metro area out to freaking Lyman or Hugo on the promise that they're going to be able to hook up with some of our kids, and this guy's crushing them. You add that to what exists already, and I should tell you, having only done this 30 years, and I've done some ICAC cases, if we hired 20 investigators to do nothing but ICAC, they could be busy all day long, every day. It's just the way it is. It's just going on at that level. So this gives us the ability to at least target the cases that we're getting, maybe expand a bit, and then the human trafficking piece is real because we have I-25 running up and down through us. We have I-70 that runs through parts of Lincoln County. And what we know about human trafficking is that it is tied to, weirdly, cities that have major league sports franchises and interstate highways. Those seem to be two of the characteristics of the places where human trafficking occurs the most. We know what's going on. We just haven't done a good job of corralling our resources to start tackling it in our jurisdiction here. Organized crime is real. Darcy was the head, really started the organized crime unit under me back in the 18th. We now have a standalone prosecutor who works the grand jury for us. You should also know that now I'm talking about, this is how the sausage gets made. Darcy, have we put the numbers together to go to the chief judge about getting a second grand jury? Okay, so we're going to the chief judge to say we'd like to stand up a second grand jury so that we can more aggressively target some of these complicated cases. And organized crime is the big piece. It could be your drug trafficking organizations, but what this prosecutor allows us to do is to focus on two other areas that we just don't have expertise on: economic crimes and elder abuse. And as you know, our jurisdiction has one of the fastest growing elderly populations in the state of Colorado. So that prosecutor will allow us to focus on, yes, crushing them, but my hope is it becomes much more of a prophylactic too, because as they get out there to the community and they're working with the sheriff's office and they're working with Elizabeth, we're getting much more of a campaign that arms the elderly parts of our population with the information to say, hey, I'm not going to click that. I'm not going to text that. I'm not going to agree to that. That's what that person will help with. The other thing about these specialty units, whether it's Special Victims Unit 8, Human Trafficking, ICAC, they do something called vertical prosecution. Now, if that term is foreign to you, very quickly, almost all of your cases, from DUIs all the way up to even murder, will start with law enforcement investigation, and they will come into a unit in our office called the intake unit. And intake is the unit that sits there and looks at this and says, that's not a crime. Or, hey, we need more evidence if we're going to charge this. This doesn't look strong enough to me. Or, hey, here's something. I know you guys want to charge this. We don't want to charge that. We want to charge. That's most of them. These specialty units, because of the subject matter expertise needed, they don't do it that way. Cops bring them the cases. They start with the charging, and then they live with that case all the way through resolution. That's what the vertical prosecution means. And it gets you these benefits here. Family violence unit, we just talked about this. I feel like I've gone through this whole thing already just by running my mouth. Oops. Here's what we're seeing. FVU is family violence unit. We don't have enough right now to justify, in my opinion, a standalone special victims unit and a standalone domestic violence unit. That'll happen. That's going to happen. But right now, because we don't, we've kind of been super economical and said, let's put both of them together and have one chief that oversees both of these units, and we'll call that chief the Family Violence Unit Chief. And that just makes us efficient. So we have that, and this kind of shows you some of the increase in cases that we've had just since I left office. I'm going to say because I left office, but you can see the increase in those cases, and it's not insignificant. These cases take more effort and resources than our other regular felony cases. Human trafficking, these are the increase in cases. That 2024 number, I'll bet you that kid out of Lincoln is good for a third of that. I mean, he is prolific. Adult filings on the domestic violence, the good news is we didn't see a huge jump between 23 and 24, but we're back on track to see increases this year. Organized crime, we talked about that. Here, the increased number in those cases. That's only going to happen more. As you know, the wolves go where the sheep are. And the perception is that the elderly populations are easy pickings. Many of the things that happen to them by way of exploitation are unprosecutable by us because they take place even outside the country through the internet. Can't do anything about that. But the ones we can get, we would sure like to make an example of to send the message that, hey, this is the wrong place to do that.
Hey, George.
Yes, sir?
What's the decrease in 2022? Is that COVID or is it?
Well, that's a good question. I was out of the office then. Darce, do you know you were there?
I think that's when I got promoted out of organized crime, was that year.
Oh, so this is a product of you leaving and the work dropped. Great. I don't know that means Darcy is responsible for the crime. I just think it means Darcy is a hyper-aggressive prosecutor on the bad guys, and maybe that's it. But the good news is the chief that we have now that runs that unit was a protege of Darcy's. She's also very aggressive. But that's all I can think of. That's a great question.
Well, I saw it on a couple of different slides. It wasn't just,
That year was the
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know, I just
Jeff, any ideas?
put that out there.
So, quick question, these cases that you're showing, are they just with the 3 counties in the new judicial district with Arapahoe's removed?
Yes. Yes, we took out Arapahoe for everyone's benefit. And this is that vulnerable population growth you can see as the color gets more and more purple. It means we're going to see that kind of increased population between now and 2030. And you can see right there, Douglas and Elbert are swimming in it, in the increase. More vulnerable population stuff. The state demographer came to Douglas County, I don't know, 9-10 months ago, and talked about how this is going to be the issue for this part of the state moving forward, is that you have a lot of people that have moved in, the graying of our communities. A lot of people that have moved in, they ain't leaving. They're staying in their homes. And in part, it creates a lack of supply for the housing thing. That's not our issue, but it also creates an increasing vulnerable population here. And what you also know from the state demographer, and I'm telling you stuff you guys already know, Elbert County, fastest growing county by population in the state of Colorado between now and, 2050 or 2060? Like, it's going to grow to 63,000 people? What?
It's an old number.
What's the new
It's
number?
been revised. It's about down to 35, 37,000.
Oh, really? Oh, so it slowed down a bit. Did you do that? Investigations. One of the other positions that's being funded, supported by Douglas County, was an investigator. So here's what I pledged to do when I ran, and I've been doing this. I want an investigator. Right now, or when I took over, it was rotational. You'd have someone come out to Elbert or Lincoln on a rotational basis. I don't want that. I want an investigator who is committed to Elbert County and Lincoln County when they need it. And then the rest of the team focuses on the big areas with all the other crime. I think the relationships are more important. I think getting to know the community is more important, and I think the outcome is better. We're now able to do that with this investigator. We have someone we've already designated to be in that role, and they've done that since I took over, but it has cost us on the other end, which is we just don't have the extra bodies to put in the couple task forces that we're doing, like Impact and DEA Front Range is the other task force that we're in. One of the other positions is a process server. If we don't have a process server, what we end up having to do is either spend our budget on getting the sheriff to go out and do it, which is hugely inefficient, or we use one of those investigators, and they're no longer doing case support or investigation. They're out serving subpoenas. This is a low-cost way to efficiently get these people served. We still have investigators if someone's trying to dodge us or something, but most of our subpoenas don't have to go that direction. We have a position to support that part of our office, and it's the appellate unit that deals with CORA. And do you know what CCJRA is? It is a very specific kind of CORA for criminal justice records. It's the Colorado Criminal Justice Records Act. It gives the agency significantly more discretion on what to do, but it's not, you can just say no to everybody. That's not how it works. We get a ton of CORA requests. I'm good with that. I want to be transparent. We have an online process. People can reach out. They never have to come into the office. But we get a ton of them. People want to know, what the hell's the DA's office doing on this? I'll give you another one that we just got yesterday. The Democrat Party reached out to CORA request all the communications between me, the sheriff out in Douglas County, and the chief out in Parker for keywords like protests and no King's Day and stuff like that. We get a ton like that, but also ones from just regular folks that want to know what the heck we're doing. I support that. Problem is, the response to that takes digging through the information, pulling out the stuff that the public isn't entitled to. That takes effort. So right now, we have 2 senior attorneys who are doing that. This would give us the ability to hire someone that could more efficiently go through that kind of stuff. Yeah, these are not things that we're looking for funding for right now, right? This is future? What about the electronic evidence transfer that we're doing with the 18th? I thought, did you find a way to get that paid?
We're still trying to determine if Arapahoe will pick up part of that cost. So we believe it was part of the transition that we concluded most of the work on January 1, but there were some files that we couldn't get. So we're still working with Arapahoe saying, hey, you put in money for this last year, we didn't get this accomplished. Can we wrap up what we need to do? The U.S. Attorney's Office is another one that we are doing right now, and then FAC.
I forgot to talk about that. So I don't know if you guys have picked up on this, but it turns out the state of Colorado, not huge fans of the federal government at the moment. I don't know if you've seen that. One of the opportunities that we have, and Darcy and I think Jeff too, met with the U.S. Attorney's Office, is they are willing to allow one of our prosecutors to be embedded into their office. A lot of benefits to that. One is the relationship building, but two, the extra option on cases where either the state has taken the tools away from us to get the outcome that's important and helpful, but the feds have it, or cases where the feds just don't have the charges that would be helpful to get justice in a case. Then we can have the case filed with us instead. I think the other thing is any communications we have with the U.S. Attorney's Office are not prohibited by any existing state laws that talk about immigration or the Immigration Customs Enforcement, none of that stuff. So that takes away a barrier from us in communicating with the feds about cases where those could be issues for either victims or offenders, suspects, all of that stuff. That's a huge opportunity. Denver has a couple embedded in the U.S. Attorney's Office right now, but for political reasons, and this is just me saying this, but I know it's true, they're only allowed to work like gun cases. They're not allowed to touch anything with immigration, not allowed to touch much with drugs, really just, and if I misdescribe that, Darcy, you got to correct me. Aurora has someone embedded. They have different but related issues in their limitations. My discussions with the U.S. Attorney's Office has been, let's not have those limitations. Let's have the ability to just focus on making sure that we keep the community safe by using the best resources. And then the Unified Crime Lab, I don't know if you guys remember, we had this great crime lab that we created that took the emphasis off of the state lab, which kind of, thank God, given all the problems that they've been having. So that's got stood up under me and Sheriff Walcher and Chief Metz and Sheriff Spurlock. 18th was part of that. We were voting members. Well, when we split off the 23rd, we don't have any voting role in that lab right now. None of us do. And the way into the lab is to get some skin in the game, which usually means putting in an employee. I'll be honest. I feel like Douglas County already gave, right? They gave the land, they gave the building, but that's not how the rest of the board sees it at the moment. So we may at some point, if we want to be voting members on this crime lab in terms of who gets to use it and at what expense, we're going to have to find a way to get whatever that skin is in the game. I don't know if it's money, if it's a position. Jeff, have you heard anything more on that?
No, I think they're thinking about drawing up new paperwork and changing it to a money philosophy instead of a body philosophy.
Oh, good.
But that's going to take 12 months, 18 months. So that's kind of where that's at. They haven't made any changes yet.
Last bullet point is that first appearance center I talked to you about, where we get most of the cases figured out pretty quickly, get people back into their lives and stuff. Right now, that is staffed by interns, and that's okay. But as it turns out, if you're an intern, you are a law student also. And that means there are periods of time during the year when they're just not available to help us out. And it becomes a mad scramble that we take all the other prosecutors who have regular dockets and try to shift them through there to cover that. This would allow us to put a one-time, full-time person there that the interns could augment and learn from. But whether it's we're flush with interns or not, that thing keeps moving forward and we don't end up delaying a bunch of cases. That's our numbers on that. This is just the number of hours and the cost with the interns. And our distance is just far enough away from CU and DU. CU is almost impossible outside of the summer to get anybody. But DU, we have a good number of interns. People want to work in the 23rd. And you should know that too, by the way. We're going through some hiring stuff right now. People want to come here. We have applications from people in Aurora, people in Denver, people outside the state of Colorado. This is a destination place, and we're trying to keep that thing going. This is just more numbers justifying the first appearance center. And Mr. Fletcher, we will get you the PowerPoint. You can tear these things apart. This is the total request that we made of Douglas County that they approved also. The 7 prosecutors we described, an investigator, process server, victim advocate, paralegal, and 1 legal assistant. That paralegal was for that Cora CCJRA position. I just didn't call it a paralegal. This is the total cost. Actually, Jeff, you're better at describing how the impact on the budget this year is really zero.
Yeah, so we're not really here asking for a supplemental. We're asking for you guys to approve these positions to come on board in 2025 and then carry the burden forward in 2026.
Just want to make sure that Jeff said that in the way that's most appealing to the commissioners and the county manager. We are not asking for money right now. I got that. We are not asking for money right now.
So there's a couple reasons for that. We've had some vacancy savings over the first 6 months of the year. We just got 2 good IT people on board. We have another senior prosecutor position that we're still looking at, deciding if we need that position. So the vacancy savings to date is about $666,000 to cover some of those costs. The total cost of 2025 would be the $666,000. Our current vacancy savings is about half of that. The other thing that I'm working on is I am working with auditors to wrap up the old 18th. And as it's looking right now, there is going to be money that's going to come back to all of the counties as a result of that. Primarily where that's coming from is we implemented a self-insurance fund for our medical coverage 6 years ago. It worked out really well for us. We're going to have about $700,000 in savings that came out of that idea. And over the past few years, we probably have the lowest request for increases in health insurance coverage. I think, we were always below 3%, where other governments could have seen 10 or 12%. So that's where that money is coming from, and why we're not asking for anything in addition is the savings we've already seen for 2025, and then using the money that you have given in past years to the 18th as we unwind that and get proceeds back to everyone. So I don't have final numbers on what that wrap-up looks like. The auditors started their field work in May. I just talked with them this week, getting them some more information. Statutorily, we need to file the audited financial statements by either June 30 or get a 1-month extension, so July 31st. So I'm hoping by August 1st we have firm numbers that I can, explain this in more detail, but my forecast right now is it's going to be no cost or minimal cost to implement all of this in 2025.
No idea what's going on. This is a Jeff slide.
This is just the breakout that your finance department and county manager probably wants to see the real details. It just shows the number of positions, the salary, the benefits, and the total cost. So this is all of the staff, and then when we get down to the bottom, you can see our vacancy savings and then the wrap-up revenue. This is just based on the numbers for Douglas County, not for Elbert County, so your numbers are a lot smaller. And I do have a slide to talk about that. So, if we were asking you for money without any of these sources, it would be about $60,000 for 2025 costs. So we're looking about $121,000 for just these 12 positions that would move forward in salaries and benefits.
Yeah, we talked about all this stuff. Any questions?
Just to clarify, that would be the commitment we would make above what we currently have for 26, as we're building our 26 budget.
That's right.
That is correct.
By the way, we will be back with the 26 budget. Like I said, I don't like shifting gears in the middle of the year. I'd rather just know what we're doing up front. But we do have some things that we'll come back and talk about for the 26 budget, but this would be part of it.
Did you say we were roughly 6% of the population
I think it's roughly 6%.
based on the three?
I think that's right. Yeah. Does that sound right, sir? And I think Lincoln is generously 1%.
And you're saying 2026 is 100, it's 126,000, did you say?
Was it 121 or 126?
But that'd be an increase over our current,
It is.
our amount.
It
So
is,
that's not
without question.
that's not the final amount, that's the increase. But
Well, the only reason I ask is 6% of 1.6 and some change is 96,631.
Yeah, you're looking at the guy that doesn't know math, so.
I'm just curious. So there's a difference of about 30,000 there.
And I think you can repeat your question, and I think I can answer it better, but I think the difference is the time frame in which we would be adding the positions.
yeah, and we're,
So we're only looking at 6 months for the new courtroom, and then 5 months or less for some of these other positions, because they're going to be a little more difficult to recruit bodies to. So I think that could be the $30,000 difference, is just the time of year that we're adding stuff.
I think it's almost 7% for Elbert County, so you have to look at the 7%. It's where it's at.
Is that number expected to go up when you come back?
The number that we asked for in the new budget?
Because you keep saying you're coming back, so.
We're coming back. You want us to come back so you can ask us about the whole budget. You want us
That
to.
number's gonna stay, or it's gonna change.
That number is what exists with what we're approved from Douglas County for at least, and what we're seeking to wrap up 2025. That will carry over to the new budget, no doubt. There will likely be some additional costs that we seek with you and the commissioners in Douglas and Lincoln as well. So that wouldn't be the end. I wouldn't just take that number, add it to our existing budget request and say that's all they're going to ask for. It may be all you give, but that's not going to be all we end up asking for.
And just to give you a rough estimate with the quick math again, this new courtroom that we had was district this year was approximately 700,000. If we staff the county court the same way, the 700,000 times 7%, we're looking at a minimum of another $50,000, I think. Because that will be a July 1 implementation, we can cut that in half. So Elbert's share of just that new courtroom would be another $25,000 for 2026.
And we don't see that as discretionary because I just don't have people to put in there without taking them from their existing job. So, so when you say, are you coming back to ask for more? That's it.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure we had a clear idea of what the actual true ask is. So, and that's not included in the 121,000 ask, right?
No.
So really, it's more like $150,000 roughly.
That's correct. And why we say we're coming back, we're following Douglas County's budget cycle. So their budget system is open until the middle of July, and then their finance department and budget team will take that back and make recommendations. So I think we will go in front of Douglas commissioners probably late August or early September to talk more about the new courtroom. And then that's when we would come back to you guys and finalize that.
Does that work with your guys' schedule? Mr. Fletcher, I don't know what you guys do budget-wise in terms of timing, but we want to accommodate that.
I think everybody's on pretty much the same schedule, but you have the two folks here that you need who can approve it, so.
Will you tell us when to come back?
No, that timeframe I think works. We'll start sending budget documents out in July for our departments to start making their preliminary asks. So that's a process. So, that same timeframe would work for us. I don't have any problem with what the ask is here today. While I wasn't a commissioner when you were DA in the 18th, I did sit over there during a lot of these meetings when you were talking about the budget. You've proven to run a lean operation, but yet very effective as well. And so your track record to me speaks. If you're coming to us with an ask, it's needed. And so I trust with what you've done in the past and will do again in the future. So
Thank you. And for everybody here, Byron too, between now and when we come back, as you leave here and we send out that thing, if you're like, I got questions I want the DA to answer, just ask and we'll come ready to answer those specific questions as you have them. Or if the community listening in is like, what about this? Please, that's what I want to do, is come here and answer the questions.
Well, that sounds great. We'll probably just send you an invite since you do the numbers. When we do our asks, if you want to come in and talk to the board at that time when everybody else is asking for stuff, you'll be welcome to join us.
Sounds great.
Just leave us some contact information and I'll get that to our finance department and we'll make sure we include you in that process.
yeah, for courtesy, we generally do a separate meeting with the DA just so they don't have to sit here and listen to all of our departments.
Thank you.
Where it's at, but we right around that same time frame.
Yeah, we can actually just put them at the front on that list.
First in
and
line.
out.
It's like the Army. Go first. Just saying.
There's a reason why.
So others can see what not to do. Yeah, I get it. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming.